Voices Radio.
Voices Radio. Voices as a radio.
Voices
Voices Radio.
Radio.
Yo, what's happening, boys and girls? Welcome to Breakfast with Sadiq Bello, available on Voices Radio on the first Thursday of every month between 9 and 11 a.m., where I will not only be playing some absolute bangers, no mash, but to wake you up from your morning slumber. But I will also be talking with various guests about how they have decided to spend their time trotting through this ironic journey that we call life. So let me start by introducing myself. Of course, I am the one, the only Sadiq Bello. Well, actually, that's a bit of a lie. If you look back through the history of the African diaspora up until now, I'm sure there has been many Sadiq Bellos before me and probably many to come after me. But I would like to think that none of them quite did it the way that I intend to live it. So, in a nutshell, I am a DJ and music producer, born in Victoria Island, Lagos, Nigeria, but raised predominantly in West London. Starting out as a house DJ, I later expanded into open format, blending a myriad of genres and learning how to scratch and use effects. This would later help me develop my own style. But for now, as I have said, tune in as I wake you up from your morning slumber and get you out of bed and prepared for another beautiful day ahead. Now, for those of you who are listening or streaming back from Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other medium, then feel free to like, subscribe, and follow me for more info at Sadiq Bello. That's at SADIQB3LLO. The 3 is there just because I wanted to be a bit quirky. Once again, that's SADIQB3LLO. Okay, so let's get into it. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Everyday People with myself, Sadiq Bello. I'm on the show today with someone who I actually really like the stuff that they do. The way that this interview came about was because, long story short, I saw them do a show on Voices and I liked the stuff they were playing, but their character was also really sort of chilled and they seemed very relaxed, and I just liked the way they carried themselves, so I thought they'd be a good person to sort of interview or necessarily just have a conversation with about how they are, as I like to do. And so I'd like to introduce you guys to Elliott Nielson. Elliott, do you want to introduce yourself to the crowd, to the people listening?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Hello, all the everyday people. I'm a journalist and DJ from North London. And it was a great pleasure to meet Sadiq in the Voices studio when I covered for Baby Boy G, who does his sort of like UK hip hop show. And yeah, I absolutely loved just vibing out in that studio. It's such a good location. But yeah, here I am. I am quite chill. I like the introduction. I like to live my life peacefully. But yeah, I guess I can go into how I do that. But yeah, that's me really.
You in a nutshell. Wicked. Love that. Oh, that's great. Okay, so the way I want to do it, there's a few things in my mind actually. So when I normally interview people, one of the things that I like about selecting the people that I interview is that I like to not just get to know them as like in the public eye that people may see in terms of you being a journalist or you being a musician and stuff like that, but I also like to understand like their background and where they came from, maybe how many like siblings they like, their favorite food, all that kind of stuff. So through the course of this show, hopefully we can get through all of these different questions and answer some of my intrigue But the first thing that I'd want to know is, so you mentioned that you're from North London, is that correct? Just
Yeah.
gonna go. Right. And were you born in London?
Yeah, I was born in Chase Farm Hospital in Enfield, and then I sort of grew up in between like Edmonton, Enfield, and Southgate, and now I'm living in Tottenham, which I absolutely love.
Yeah. Do you know what's really funny about Tottenham, right? So I always say, like, obviously, like, no shade to anyone, but I'm always saying to myself that, like, I think one of the only two places in London that I wouldn't personally want to live in is either East London or necessarily North. But I'll tell you why I say North. Even though, like, the houses are fantastic from what I've seen, like, there's lots of big houses and space and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I always find that I feel like there's nothing to do there, if that makes sense. Like, everything's kind of central or towards Hackney and East. So what's it like actually growing up in North London as a whole for you? How would you describe it for those who have never been?
Yeah, I feel you. I'm repping the scene right now, and it's quite funny because you don't really have many people also that like are desperate to rep it. But the other day I was out in Tottenham, and this guy even had like the Enfield Borough kind of emblem is a fox, this funny fox that's got long legs and stuff like that. And this guy had a tattoo of this fox, and I'd never met someone who repped so hard for Enfield before, and I was like, oh my god, we need to be friends. And this was when we were out in Tottenham at the Archives, which is a venue not many people know about.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah, no, I can hear you.
I pulled my headphone. I was out at the Archives because Mode FM, sort of a grime station that a lot of my mates play at. We're doing a little event, and
right.
So yeah, the Archives is cool. It's this massive venue, and we're hanging out there. And that's just around the corner from Markfield Road, where you've got Moco, Tottenham. Rambai, Bradley Zero, and the guys that do Jumbie down in Peckham. That Moco has now got, I think it was in Time Out for the best vegan restaurant in London.
I can imagine, yeah.
Which is really cool.
Stuff, because so basically before Moco was a thing, I remember when they came out with when they opened Jumbie, and I was always saying like, oh, I'm gonna go there. I haven't gone there yet. But I love like the interior of it and the way like they've got like vinyls or records, I think it was on the wall and stuff like that. And then so I've always thought of when Moco came out, I was like, oh, this is going to be just as good, if not better, because they probably learned some stuff from opening Jumbie that they would probably take over to Moco. And then now, actually, Voices Radio did their New Year's Eve party up in Moco.
Did you go?
I still wore I wasn't there. No, I had to play somewhere else. I was playing I think I was at Old Blast that night.
Oh, awesome.
And what's it called? And I saw the pictures and I was like, oh my god, this place is great. And so it slowly started like making me inch towards going up, exploring North or exploring Tottenham and whatnot.
But I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like your superstitions or your presuppositions are true. Growing up in North London did require you to travel elsewhere, but I feel like in London that's kind of normal. If you're like from the suburbs, you kind of always have to make a little movement. And even if you live in Hackney and you want to have a good time, or Zone 2, you still everyone's got to hop on the tube. Do you know what I mean? At some point, if you really want to experience London. So it kind of didn't feel like much of a difference. It just felt like going a few more stops. The thing I love about North London, where I grew up, most of my time was spent in a place called Trent Park, which is, you can either go to Cockfosters or Oakwood on the Piccadilly line. And if you've never been to Trent Park, it's this beautiful, massive country park, which you could explore like for days. It sounds quite wild and rural, but it's literally opposite a tube station. And I just spent all my time kind of running around in there, really. Like, I was more of the music type, so I would just be jamming with friends, like on the guitar and hanging out, and then picnicking and barbecuing. And that's kind of how I spent my 16 to 18-year-old. There's a driving range there as well, so you can play some golf. And a lot of
so there is stuff to do. Like there's like you can still have a good time like being in Tottenham. I feel like a part of me is coming from so I grew up in West London, and like a lot of people always think or know that like West Londoners are a little bit snobbish in the way that we think West London is the best part of town and we're never leaving, and everywhere else is like dangerous and there's nothing to do and blah 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 and so forth. And so I think that's where my brain comes from when I don't go or I haven't been to these places growing up, because I always felt like there was like an element of danger, or like, will I get lost, or what would I do there, and so forth. Like everything for us was always, oh yeah, come to Oxford Circus or Marble Arch or Central or the West End. But as I've grown up, and now even talking to you and talking to a few people, I'm starting to learn that there's things obviously to do in other parts of London, and you know, simultaneously Tottenham as well, considering you've got like a driving range and stuff.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel about West London, to be honest. It seems like a wild west to me, with this massive Trellick Tower and just like expansive roads, and then you got the M1, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's scary. Whereas North London to me just feels a bit more rural, and even Tottenham, right? It's called Tottenham. Yeah, that's just cute to me. But still, like in terms of like actual stuff for the youths, I feel like it's lacking. You know, we grew up, I'm 27, the last 15-20 years I never got to experience like, say, a community centre where you could like hang out and do stuff. The biggest spot in Southgate where I grew up was the McDonald's, and people would just go and hang out there. There definitely wasn't a lot really to do, so it did require you to travel and get about. But as soon as people got cars, people would just be to and fro in cars and going into each other's houses. But the main thing for me in North London is the parks and the green space. I absolutely love being outdoors. And for me, that's kind of key now. And now that I'm in Tottenham, I've got the marshes, and I can go up and down these canals. And just kind of, you know, just enjoy the open space. I don't think I could live anywhere more central.
That makes sense,
because
it's probably a part of then not knowing or not experiencing like the fear of the unknown, as a human being. Because it's funny that you would say, I've had people say to me things like that about West London. They'll be like, oh, what, there's Harsden and like Stonebridge and Mozart and all these places are like, you know, terrible and there's trouble and knife crime and so forth, which is funny because to me, I mean, the knife crime itself isn't funny, but I mean, the idea of it is funny to me because I think of West London as the safest place I could be, but that's obviously because I know it. And so for that reason, like I almost rarely ever go to, if I'm going to be in East or South, I'm going to meet someone who I already know like what's happening, how I'm getting home and all of that thing. So then with my idea, and I think a lot of West Londoners' idea of Tottenham or North London being dangerous, do you feel like it's mainly a lot of hype coming from the unknown, or like you yourself growing up, did you ever feel like it was an unsafe place to be?
In North London, there were times. It's the thing. Like I don't want to say I'm a brave guy. I'm a really brave guy. But I just kind of always have faith that because I am a peacekeeper, and because I always stop fights. I was a rugby player growing up, and I would never get involved. I would always sort of come between people. And as the peacekeeper, I always felt like if there's people brandishing knives, that they've got no reason to hurt me, even if they're threatening to take this, take that. They've got no reason to hurt me because I'm just remaining calm and I'm just being peaceful. And I've never really been scared. In where I grew up, I was in between one really big block. I can't remember what it's called now. The Cowper estate. Right. Quite bad. Sort of like gang problem there. There was always a few fights, and there was a guy that I actually became strangely close with. This guy, I won't name names, I think he's in prison now, but he was a crazy kid, used to roll around with a screwdriver first time I met him. He was about 14. Jesus. 5-6 years later, he's running around with a machete, stabbing up guys on the high street, like right in the KFC in Southgate.
That's mad.
Absolute madman. And you know, even then, like he when he would take drugs, he would threaten me, and even though I knew him, and I still never really got too scared because I kind of had it in myself. And then as you go further out towards Wood Green, which is a little bit south from me, I did always think that was a bit dangerous, but not really. Broader picture, east, south, west, I look at it with like rose tinted glasses, and I don't really know. I just kind of think, you know what, like there's going to be bad people everywhere, but as long as I maintain this peaceful persona of outward love and smiling, and like I just never really thought I'd be in too much danger, except the other day when I was in Tottenham and I got off the night bus and I was walking, and there's this guy singing at the top of his lungs, and he was singing like a Christmas song, and he was like, "Last Christmas," like manically shouting. I smile at this guy. I'm like, "Are you singing? Like, nice." He runs over to me. He's like, "What? Last Christmas?" And I'd never been actually like approached. He was within like half a center of my face.
That's insane.
And I could smell onions.
Okay.
And like he just looked at me, and then I just sidestepped him, walked on.
Yeah.
There's two guys that had got off the bus with me. He was going, "You didn't know that guy, did you?"
Yeah.
It's like, no. He's like, "Yeah, mate. Welcome to the jungle."
Right.
And, so I live right off Tottenham High Street, off Bruce Grove and Seven Sisters Road, and it is a little bit wild, but I'm just maintaining the peace. And I think it is a bit of hype if you get involved. Then you're likely to be hurt, but if you just come with the outward peace, you're gonna be fine.
Then you'll be alright. I get that, and part of me is kind of like that too. I always feel like I've had this conversation even with like my parents, where like I'm thankful that nothing too like drastic has ever happened to me, and to be honest, I've never been like approached for anyone to like try and rob me or steal anything from me. And so like I'm not necessarily the biggest, baddest, bravest guy either. Like, but I carry myself with a certain level of I'm very aware that there's danger around, but like I don't fear it. Like I'm not scared of it necessarily. That's one. But then two, I don't walk around, and I feel like this is kind of how you get by, you know, London, or even if you're in like, I don't know, like Kenya or wherever in the world is like dangerous and stuff. But it's like if you sort of walk around almost like a peacekeeper, like you said, like you're not actually looking for trouble, then it probably doesn't actually come to you. Because what I find is that although there is an element of danger, you sort of have to give ammo to the other person before something happens. Like there's I don't think, and I could be wrong, to be honest, it could just be my ignorance, but I don't feel like anyone really, no matter how crazy somebody is, I don't feel like anyone really just comes up to you and stabs you like for no reason. So even this guy who's singing at the top of his lungs, right? Like, fair enough, you looked at him and you smiled, but as he ran towards you, he still kind of said what before before anything. I feel like those kind of situations would be, if you had said what back, then something would happen. Do you know what I mean? What I mean by saying, like, I don't feel like anything really does happen for no reason. And although there's been moments where I remember when I was at uni, even in Putney, like on Putney Bridge, there was a guy at the bus stop who was acting kind of a little bit like suspicious and like a bit crazy. And later on I found out it's basically because he'd escaped from like Wandsworth mental health.
What?
Yeah,
that's
something
crazy.
But even with him, this guy, as I could look in his eyes and know that he was crazy, like the first thing that he asked me was, first he said to me, "Oh, can you fight?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, that depends. Not really. I mean, I don't look for fights. Why?" And he was like, "No reason. It's because I'm hearing voices." And I said, "What kind of voices?" And he's like, "When I'm hearing voices in my head that are telling me to kill myself." And then I was like, whoa. So that's how I knew he was crazy. But see, even with that, like there was still dialogue. He didn't just like sort of randomly come up to me and just punch me or stab me or do things like that, and so forth. So I am thankful that things haven't happened. But I now understand. I guess that's probably why you've gotten away with, or like gotten to where you are, like you said, because you kind of carry this natural peacekeeper vibe about you, which is what I like to begin with. That's why I chose to interview you.
Nice. Yeah, thank you. I always give people a chance, especially people out on the street. There's been so many moments where like I'll be talking to someone whilst I'm waiting for a mate, and they're like, "Of course you're talking to like my mate will be like, of course you're talking to this guy, bruv. Like, why are you talking to this guy?"
Of all people,
like you have to talk to the maniac on the high street. But so, I feel like everyone deserves a chance, and you never know what you learn from different kinds of people. You know, even in their forward states, you never know what you're gonna learn.
Wicked. All right. Well, I mean, now that I feel like I guess I know a little bit more about you, like where you've grown up and your peacekeeper vibe and where it comes from, even though it comes from a very unlikely place. Like until this conversation, I had no idea that like you could develop a peacekeeper mentality in Tottenham. But
Yeah, I've just on speaking to you. Actually, I've only kind of realised that maybe it comes from being in this environment. I kind of developed some kind of survival technique. I'd never really thought about it until now. Like, I always thought I adopted it and then brought it into this world, but actually, it's also being an older brother, settling disputes and stuff like that. And I had parents that argued a lot.
Yeah.
And that kind of maybe led to that. But actually thinking about it, maybe it's just a survival technique that I've developed only because of this environment.
That's true. It's funny, and also that you mentioned that, because I'm the baby, so I'm the youngest in my family, and everyone always looks at me as the peacekeeper, because like every single time I hear, whether it's my parents arguing or my older siblings or anything like that, I've never really cared as much as them. And I think it's because at first it came from a lack of understanding. So when you're a child and loads of like adults are arguing around you, you don't really understand what they're arguing about, or shouting. But as I've gotten older, what happens now is any disputes that sort of happen, whether it's within family or friends or at work or wherever I'm at, I always automatically jump straight to, yeah, but it's not that important. I mean, we're all breathing, right? Like you go to bed, you're going to go home tonight, hopefully, and wake up again tomorrow morning. So what are you really complaining about? And so I carry myself like that amongst all, like any issues that come across, even if like I missed my bus or like, you know, I was on the way to work and I was running late. I always just think of it as like, it's really, it could be a lot worse. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, but what I'll do is I'm going to play some music now.
Lovely.
And when we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit more about your journalism, firstly, and then your DJing and how you got into that, and you know what you hope to, I don't know, achieve from it, or if there's like an end goal, or maybe there isn't one. Maybe you just enjoy doing it. But yeah, we'll discuss all of that shortly. Yeah,
sounds good.
Cute. Yeah, I'm going to play some music now. Okay, right guys, so we're now back. As you know, it's Everyday People with myself, Sadiq Bello. I'm here having a very interesting conversation with Elliott Nielson, who has spent the first 20 minutes talking to me about life in Tottenham, or like growing up in North London in general, and how he gets about being a peacemaker. And we've realized we have many similarities in that sense. But now I would love to talk about the other stuff that he does, which of course is DJing and music journalism. And so, Elliott, you still there? You want to say hi to the people?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm loving it.
Excellent.
Just having a nice, easy conversation. It's beautiful.
Lovely. Well, these are the kind of conversation I have as well, because most of the time when I listen to like other podcasts or radio station shows or like DJs, they always sort of talk about the I was going to say like superficial things, but it's not really superficial, it's more of interest. But I think like we spend a lot of time making content based on what someone does, so whether they're a doctor or a dancer or a pharmacist or a DJ or whatever, and I find that there's very few podcasts out there that are just having a conversation, just literally talking how you would talk in a restaurant or on a bus or anything like that. So that's the inspiration behind
nice.
People, because I believe everyday people, or like everyone, has a story to tell, and it shouldn't necessarily always be based on something that they can capitalize on, or something that, you know, they make money from, or something. Sometimes it's just hey, what's your favorite, I don't know, scary movie? And then the conversation flows.
Yeah, I feel you. I haven't got any answers for that question though. I don't really partake. I don't bother.
You know what?
With the scary stuff.
Yeah, man. My girlfriend is obsessed with like horror movies, and I'm like, what's wrong with you? Are you demonic or something? Like, why did you do this?
Nope. I don't mind a bit creepy though. I did go to see that Poor Things in the cinema the other day. It was not really horror. It was a bit more surrealist. It was hilarious. Mark Ruffalo doing an English accent, and Emma Stone as this Frankenstein-esque creature. So good. I love a bit of creepiness.
Yeah.
The weird.
Yeah.
Just straight out jump and scare. No, thank you.
No, see. So I don't mind weird and I don't mind creepy, but I don't like anything that's supernatural because then that starts.
You can't fight it.
Yeah, once it starts like, oh yeah, so there's something like there's a ghost in my fire alarm. I'm like, yo, I don't want to watch that. I'm like, nah, because what if like my fire alarm just starts going off? Then all of a sudden I can't fight or run away from the thing. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if it's a human being, at least I know, oh, you got legs, so I can run away from you. Right?
I'm exactly the same, man.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, something did kind of happen to me kind of recently. I was living at my girlfriend's house. Shout out India Rose, my beautiful girlfriend. I was living with her for a little while in this beautiful house, her parents' house in Bristol. And it's a very old house. It used to belong to the washerwoman of the village that they kind of live in. And so on the outskirts, it's like the original village of Bristol, Westbury-on-Trim.
Cool.
And the washerwoman lived there. And like, I like to keep my house clean, but also sometimes I just throw my clothes on the floor, jump into bed. And, you know, she'd always be like, you know, can you pick your clothes up? I'd be like, okay, fine. And so I left my clothes on the floor and like I came into the room and the lights were flickering.
Oh my God.
And my girlfriend was like, oh, yeah, well, the laundry woman that used to live in this house clearly doesn't like you leaving your clothes on the floor. She made a joke out of it, yeah. But the light would only flicker if I had left clothes on the floor, bro.
That's insane. See, stuff like that I don't like. That's already insane. I'm just here like getting goosebumps already. Do you know what I mean?
No, it really creeped me out. And so I tested it and it kept happening. And I was like, right.
Creepy.
Okay. Well, if you're going to talk to me through the light bulb, that's fine. I'll promise I'll do my washing.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Imagine she's listening to this now and she's just laughing in like some surreal dimensions. She's like, oh, I did
She connected through, man. She broke through.
On airwaves. But yeah, so all that aside, moving on to you as a person professionally, not just as an individual, but in terms of, so did you start, were you a journalist before you were a DJ, or were you a DJ before you were a journalist, or did it just simultaneously happen at the same time?
Yeah, I've kind of been a DJ as long as like I can remember. Really, my dad was a musician, is involved in the music industry, and like brought me up on like a really healthy diet of soul, funk, and jazz. Nice. And we, you know, dinner time, he's putting on all sorts of maybe like a Latin compilation or like an Ibiza sort of sunset chill out kind of thing with some Groove Armada and a lot of jazz. So I just remember being like obsessed with music and listening to Radio 1 all the time. Yeah. Through my GCSEs, and that kind of led into me being the most like up to date by the time you hit like 15, 16. Yeah. And so my dad bought me a little controller. Nice. And then like all the house parties in sixth form, everywhere, I'm just always there, and people are like, "Oh, put some music on." Oh, nice. And someone puts some music on, and they're like, "Oh,
yeah, they're like, "Oh, jump
sort this out, fix this up, please.
Fix this, please." Yeah.
So that was kind of how it started, and then that kind of fed into a personality of always hunting for new music, and then having to tell people about it. Yeah. Because it's burned in my head and I can't get out of my head. I'm like, this tune is so good, someone's got to know. So I tell my friends, and I'm like, oh, I could tell everybody else. And all of a sudden, I decided to write about it. And the life I had planned out actually in A-levels was a bit more academic, funnily enough. I was doing quite well in maths and physics, and I thought I wanted to do electrical engineering. Right. As a degree. Yeah. And I kind of like looked around and went up to Sheffield and saw the course there, and was thought about doing all this like academic stuff. But meanwhile, I'm writing in my journals. I'm writing about the brain and life and culture and philosophy and stuff like this, and I'm writing away, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like I'm really creative. Yeah. I'm taking a lot of photos. Why am I doing this? Going down this path because I thought it might be to be. Yeah, and that was kind of because of school. And then one of my English teachers was just like, you should think about journalism.
Yeah.
And then she said it, I blanked out. I found
Yeah.
a journalism course at UAL,
Right.
down in LCC. And then what she told me was that you need to take a route like anthropology, or it's still quite an academic course, but something you can go back to. And I was just like, I just found this journalism course at UAL. So before that, I was already writing for like a couple. I found a job in sixth form for a charity called the Philanthropy Club down in St Paul's Cathedral. They did these really cool adventure holidays where you can raise like thousands of pounds and do the Kilimanjaro walk and build some like wells in Kenya and things like this. And so I was writing for them. I was writing about charity, and just realizing how much I really enjoy talking to people and telling people's stories.
Yeah.
So I did my journalism degree. Then I moved to Bristol, and then kind of didn't really dabble, just kind of kept DJing and doing some parties in Bristol, playing all sorts of different kind of sounds. And then I did a jazz and chess event, stealing from Hasib Iqbal's idea of doing like a beats and boards kind of night. And now I'm
That's
back in
really nice,
London.
by the way. That's very, like, I like the idea of that, like jazz and chess.
Jazz and chess, it was such a good combo.
Yeah.
We got such a good reception. Everyone in Bristol was coming to the canteen for our Monday night sort of just relax place. We called it messy chess. So
Yeah.
the pints were flowing.
A good vibe. Yeah. Like, I love
Thanks
it. If you ever throw like another one, even if it's in London, let me know, because I'll show up.
Yeah, well,
no.
like if anyone's interested in that kind of thing, Hasib Iqbal started it up again at the Tate Modern, the Corner Cafe. Every Thursday, you can go and play some board games and listen to some good grooves. I'm going to check it out. I haven't been, but I've been working at the Tate as in the hospitality department.
Oh, nice.
Just doing events, so I need to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really good vibe. But yeah, it's kind of back to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a radio station to play on. I had something lined up with Hale London in Tottenham here, but it kind of hasn't really worked out. So from February, I'm going to be just sort of live streaming on my Twitch, just doing a regular show that I can kind of control, and I'm producing a podcast, which I'm very excited about. Haven't announced it yet, but I've done a few interviews with some really interesting guests.
Nice.
And it's going to be a music history podcast about music as resistance.
Okay.
And either a song, an album, a band, a whole movement, a whole genre that has had to face persecution, oppression, and kind of been used as a protest anthem.
Right.
So I kind of like exploring the meeting point between art and sort of freedom of expression for an actual political sense. That's something that fascinates me, because I've always wanted to do investigative stuff and show how, we can fight back as a people against oppressive powers. And I feel like this is going to help me explore that realm of rebellious music.
Makes sense. I feel like we have a lot of similarities. When I'm listening to you like talk, the things that you're saying now, we're very much into. So like that's how I ended up doing like this podcast, for instance. Is that so? I've always I've DJed for as long as I can remember. Same. And I had a similar thing where it was like I never actually wanted to be a DJ, but it's just I always had a deep interest in music, and my mum would play music around the house and stuff like that. And then like my dad likes music a bit, but he's not too into it in the same way as whereas like my mum knows, like my mum was going to all the gigs and stuff like that when she was young. And then but a big part of what I do, like even with songs that I may produce or mixes that I might make or people that I talk to, even having this sort of conversation, it's all for me, the end goal has always been like a little bit philanthropic or some sort of humanitarian end goal, to see like, okay, as a community or as a world, as a society in general, there's something that we need to do to make things better, because at the moment everything is kind of terrible or falling to bits. And I don't necessarily think it's just so what I've come across over time is I used to be very much like, oh, the 1% and the billionaires and this and that, and like the powers that be are like kind of keeping us under well and etc etc. But then now I've sort of changed my outcome where a lot of what I think is I don't actually need to stand on a podium per se and sort of reach the masses and say, guys, follow me like I'm Moses and I'm going to part the sea or anything like that. Right? But what I've realized is by having these sort of conversations with people one by one individually, like day by day, month by month, year by year, over time, what happens is you build a better sense of community, and I feel like that's how you save the world, as opposed to necessarily like the other way to fight back. Like there's a really nice quote that I've seen it all over social media, or where it says, "The greatest rebellion is remaining your true self in a society that's constantly trying to change you," or something like that. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, I like that.
Similar. And so what I figured is that, okay, so instead of actually standing on the podium and getting everyone to fight, all we have to do is just basically keep saying no to the things that they want us to do. So for instance, I've completely gone against the idea of getting a mortgage. I no longer want a mortgage because I was like, why making banks happy or rich or whatever it is? Instead, I'm more than happy to either rent forever, or I might buy a boat or live off grid or whatever it is. And the reason why I look into more things like that is because they can't, whoever the they is, they can't stop me from doing that. And by doing that, I no longer feed into their pockets or into the society or whatever it is, and so forth. And so I say all of this to say that's basically how Everyday People came about, because I didn't want to just be another one of those platforms or another podcast that was like interviewing famous DJs or musicians or artists or celebrities and whatnot. But I can literally have this conversation with my postman, and that would be the podcast. You know what I mean? That would
I like it.
That would end up, because everyone really does have an important part to play or a story to tell. And I think if you treat people like human beings, you treat everyone the same, or treat them the way that you treat celebrities or politicians or public figures or whatever it is, then that's how you actually save the world. Not necessarily giving something material or giving something tangible, but giving people your time, or like treating them as a human being. Like more times than none, when you walk past someone who is like maybe someone is homeless, or they haven't got a job or whatever it is, a simple acknowledgement that they are also human life could go a long way. Like, because most people, I realize, probably don't want you to actually give them something or just have a handout for the rest of their life. They would just rather you treat them as equal, you treat them in the way that you want to be treated, and by doing that, it would probably give them the self-esteem that they needed in order for them to get their life back on track. Does that
I absolutely love that, man. That's kind of how I like to carry myself. And even if I don't have any change to give the homeless person outside the station, it just acknowledging their existence is key, man. And I like how you've come to that place of thinking like it's not about fighting, it's about uniting
each other. And that's another thing
that's really cool.
Politicians, I always find that like I said a minute ago, like I don't normally like to point the finger and say, oh yeah, the politicians are bad and like we're the good ones or so forth. But what I find that in all politics, there's always like red and blue. There's no one who's actually just purple and being like, okay, let's just kind of see what see the equal sides of all argument and find some sort of common ground. I always find someone is like, oh, don't listen to that person, I am the one that's right, and the other person is saying the same thing. But it's like, you can't possibly know what's right for everyone unless you either agree to play devil's advocate to some degree, or you understand why in that person's world what they are doing is a good thing, why they feel like it's worth it. Like even if someone is waging, and I get that it's a sensitive topic to even discuss now with all the stuff that's going on in the world, but it's like even with someone who is causing a war, if there's a conflict against like another nation or another country, I feel like it's not good enough to say, oh, that person is bad, we need to like, arrest that person. I feel like we should also be able to sit down with that person and say, yo, can you actually give me an explanation as to why you think this is making the world better. Because if you can have that conversation with someone and get them to understand your view, you're more likely able to stop them from, in general, just being an arsehole. Like, do you know what I mean? I think that's what like hostage negotiators are and stuff. Like when I read this incredible story about Muhammad Ali. Who he basically like negotiated some hostages from like some war back when he was like champion of the world and like in his prime, like top boxer or whatever.
As if he wasn't a bloody legend anyway.
Exactly. Like so imagine how surreal it is that all of these world leaders could do nothing to stop this war, but this boxer was able to fly over and just
because he's a lean, mean, fighting machine.
And just have a conversation. Yeah, and just be like, yo, what's going on here?
It's because they don't have the sauce, Sadiq. Muhammad Ali had the sauce. He would rhyme like all the time.
Exactly.
Bro, he was just so like happy and joyful and flavorful. I did read a book about Muhammad Ali actually, and like he just did funny shit. Like there was this fighter that he was up against, and he had this slogan that rhymed about the person he was fighting on his coach, and then like pulled up to this guy's yard before the fight as like a press thing, just to like take the piss out of him. And just that like different kind of energy, I can see why. Just having that little extra. I don't get why the politicians aren't prepared to. I know it's, they don't want to seem like they're having a little bit of fun, but have a little bit more fun with it. Be a bit more real. Be a bit more saucy. I thought there was going to be. I thought there was going to be a few politicians to stand up and be add a bit of flavour. There's that Scottish girl, Mallory. No, who's it? I can't remember. There's a young Scottish politician right now who's always challenging the House. I thought, a little while, Jeremy Corbyn I was a big Jeremy Corbyn fan. I thought there was going to be someone else. But at the minute, there's just no politician, like you said, purple's my favourite colour, by the way. So when you mentioned the purple party, I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
Ooh, that could be you, man.
That could be me.
That could be you.
Why is there no one coming in and just being absolutely honest and just avoiding all the questions? It's absolutely bonkers, man.
It's crazy, like the way things are set up. But so that's how I feel. Going back to what you were talking about with your podcast, like those are the kind of things that I think the power of art and music and these creative outlets have, is that they change people's it has the power to change people's perception and way of thinking. Even if it's like a movie that's on Netflix, or a song or an album that someone's made, or just a system that someone has created, or whatever it is. Like we have if you honestly believe you have the way to change what they say, those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world usually do. So
but I felt there was something lacking in today's music. I felt there's definitely an element and an argument to be made by some people, like, I don't want my music to be politicized, I just want it to just kind of be easy listening to, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fair enough. But I grew up on a healthy diet of Bob Marley and Rage Against the Machine. And there's times where I feel like, sometimes, especially what we're going through right now, and it's always been that way, the masses have always been going through shit. But I feel like right now, people need a good reminder of the real power that music can have. And there's so many stories around the world that people really don't know about, and it gives me a chance to showcase loads of music as well, that people are forgetting. Like, people have died for music. Music has literally stopped wars, has made people put guns down. Music has been so influential politically that I think most people don't actually know a lot of the stories, and most people take for granted that we can listen to Central C again and again and again, but what's he really doing for society? What's he really? The stories we tell ourselves now as a society, I don't feel are really pushing us forward, and that's with TV, that's with film,
It's with everything.
that's with everything. Compare us to like
Yeah.
what the Greeks used to talk about, these epic tales of heroes and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and heroes and villains, and
no longer exist.
now we're telling ourselves just
Hundreds.
really banal. We're obsessed with fucking serial killers. Like,
Yeah.
who are we all trying to be here? I'm trying to tell stories that make us want to be, make us want to be Bob Marley. Like,
Yeah.
that's who I want to
So
be.
funny, right? That you, as soon as you were talking, even before you mentioned his name, when you said the political thing, the first person that I thought of was Bob Marley. I literally just sat there and I thought, yeah, music like Bob Marley, and I want to understand why that is. But I feel like what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some music now.
Sounds good.
And then we're going to get into that and see, like, okay, so what is it about, not just what is it about Bob Marley that, like, how did he become that person, but also is like, if you're not trying to be, and I'm going to say this, but it's like, if you're not trying to be Bob Marley, what are you really doing with your life? Do you know what I mean? It's like, that should actually be everyone's end goal. It's like, if you're not trying to be Bob Marley, right? Or if you're not, or Michael Jackson, whoever it is, but these people, it's like, if you're not trying to be that, what are you really doing? So we'll discuss that after.
That sounds good on the other side. I'm gonna play some Devil's Advocate as well, but we're gonna. That sounds like a good combo. I'll catch you in the.
Alright, sweet. We'll be back in a bit. Alright. Alright. Okay, so we're back. That was quite a long break. Played a bit of tunes there.
Vibes.
Vibes, all the vibes. Hope you guys liked what you were hearing. If you just joined us, once again, we're back on Everyday People with myself, Sadiq Bello, and I'm here with Elliott Nielson. And I should actually explain, no shade to anybody else that I've ever had on before. Like, I love you guys, but Elliott, you are by far probably my favorite guest so far.
Oh, I'm honoured. I'm honoured even just to be invited for a chat with you, Sadiq. I really appreciate it. This is my first ever interview that I've ever actually been asked to do. I'm always on the other side, as you know. I'm a journalist, and I've spoken to a lot of people for different publications, and I've done some good ones, but I've never actually been on this side, so it's good. It's a different feeling, and I'm enjoying it.
That's nice. No, I really love doing this, and this is what I imagined it was going to be like. Like, when I first met you, and I was like, yo, I feel like I should have you on my podcast and we should talk. It's literally because in my mind, I swear to you, I felt like, okay, this is the kind of, I couldn't imagine any other sort of conversation aside from this one. And I keep an eye on like stuff as well. Like I might see on your like Instagram or your stories, and just like the music you play, or just in general, I feel like the way you carry yourself, I was like, nah, this is a good person to sit down and have a conversation with. So thanks for giving me the time to actually sit here and talk to you.
A pleasure, Sadiq.
Cool. So the last thing that I said, for those of you who were not locked in, was if you aren't trying to be Bob Marley, what are you really doing with your life?
What are you doing, man? You got your head in the sand? Like,
you know what I mean?
On, like, you got to try and live lively up yourself. Be a bigger man, man.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it in any better way. But then also, Elliott, you said something about playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, of course. We have to, acknowledge.
Okay.
It's very easy to romanticize Bob Marley and, all the tales. He did have, 11 kids from 7 wives.
Yeah, that's also...
It was all consensual, of course. I'm sure, and I'm sure all of his kids are very happy to be the son of Bob Marley.
Yeah.
He's not a perfect man.
He's not.
Of course not. He was about, and the new Marley movie's coming out, so we can learn a little bit more about him.
Of course.
Through that, but I think what he really embodies for me is the tale of how he stopped the civil war going on in Jamaica at the time. That for me is the powerful story, regardless of who he is and what he's done, how he treats people. It seems most people around him liked him, and even Rita Marley, who stuck with him throughout her life, she still had no bad blood, even though he had many other lovers. So I guess we played the devil's advocate. To the real matter of fact, he was in London for a little while, kind of in exile. where he wrote Exodus, and then was asked to come back because he said, the Prime Minister said, if you come back and prove your support for me, we could probably stop this civil war. And there was a lot of people dying in Jamaica because of this war, and he did, and he'd already been shot at that point. The reason he left was because he got shot, I think, in the stomach.
Yeah, he got shot in the stomach, and I think it was shot with like 2 bullets, and then one of them grazed his elbow as well. And it's because so basically, right, from what I understand on a couple of documentaries that I saw, it was because one of the this concert he was doing, like give peace a chance and one love and whatnot, was basically being sort of organized, I think, by one of the political parties. And so the other political party looked at it almost as a defiance, like, oh, he's chosen that side. And so the other side came. That's what apparently it said in this documentary. But then there's also rumors to say that was staged to make that political party look bad, so that like he wouldn't, I don't know, it was all
wow, I wonder how deep the rabbit hole goes on this one. Like, who knows what the CIA had to do with this.
That's what some people said. They were like, the CIA was sort of involved for that, in the hopes that if they killed Bob Marley, then the civil war would carry on, and then America could step in.
I suppose that would be interesting to look into, actually. I'd be very intrigued to know.
If there is a CIA or an FBI agent listening to this, please don't kill me.
Please come in and chat to us. We're dying to know the real reason.
I'm just a normal guy, everyday people.
But I think the whole reason I talk about this story is because he decided to go back, and he decided to be brave, and he decided to do this massive free concert where like half of Jamaica turned up, and without any fear played a show which I probably have no doubt was incredible. I think about it all the time, like, I just wish I went to that 1976, like the whole of Jamaica turns up to a free concert, and kind of stopped everyone fighting. And there was a bit of beef afterwards or whatever, but that for me really embodied the power of music. And then going on from that, like, I've found other stories from other parts in the world where people are just sort of singing about their problems against regimes that they don't agree with, or by purely singing certain styles of music in certain countries, in some like religious fundamentalist countries, just the act of singing a certain genre is rebellious. And so people kind of expressing themselves that way, to me, is something I think we can all take from in this day and age. And sing with purpose, sing with a reason behind you. Come with something like real. Come with some real lyrics, and kind of let's alleviate the world's problems through beautiful music, rather than kind of playing ignorance or feeding into capitalism, feeding into nihilism, feeding into sex and sexism. I get it. There's an argument for a lot of music. It's like, you're singing about your situation and you're just kind of alleviating the trauma that you've had through there, but also what are the stories we're telling ourselves? What is the world that we want to live in? And so that's why I'm making this Rebel Radio podcast, to remind people about the stories that have actually impacted thousands or even millions of people around them through the power of music, I think.
That's nice. And with your with this podcast you're doing, is it like on a weekly basis or like on a monthly basis?
I think it's going to be on a bi-monthly basis. I've never produced a podcast of this size before. I've done like smaller series for other people. There's a blatantly blunt one, a guy, Nick Russell, who did like these really nice sort of hour-long deep dives with some of UK hip-hop's great ones, and I produced those. But this one, I'm kind of setting myself a goal of 12 interviews and then 12 sort of solo episodes. So the interviews are going to be with some really cool sort of people I feel that embody the rebellious spirit and sing with not necessarily sing and play with that rebellious nature. And then the other 12 episodes, I'm kind of looking for a co-host, actually, or I might do it myself. I haven't decided yet. I've just been writing the scripts, but the other 12 episodes are going to be sort of like music documentaries with beautiful soundscapes, setting in the environment and telling you stories about protest songs that you never really knew about, or movements or genres that you'd never heard of that had to really fight for their existence.
Oh, that's really nice. I really look forward to that. The way you make it sounds very intriguing. Like, I'd love to. Are you going visual as well, or are you doing just audio?
No, I'm gonna stick to just audio because I like. There's some beautiful podcasts out there. Like, I absolutely love this one by WNYC. It's called Radio Lab.
Right.
And they tell audio stories beautifully with like perfect little sound samples, multiple people telling the thing, interchanging between there and the interviewers. They interview people as well for the podcast, but the way they interchange between their voice and the voice of the people they interview, you don't need visuals. Like, you're really there. I mean, because it's about music, I think this one's got to be visual. I'm not breaking into TV just yet.
No, nice. And there's something magical about listening to audio without seeing visual. I like even this. There's like a lot of people telling me to do visual at first, but I love the fact that there's something about radio that's actually just full on magic, where I feel like it actually allows you to sort of use your imagination a little bit more, and you sort of create the atmosphere yourself based on the sounds that you can hear, instead of like looking at. Sometimes it's just a bit more magical to just hear something as opposed to see it. So I'm looking forward to that. When you do have it all together and you're out, please let me know, because I'll definitely want to give that a listen. And yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'll definitely be sending that out to you, man. It's going to be good.
Sounds all good. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a little bit more music, and then we'll have our last segment where I'll ask you a question that I always ask all of my guests, and I'm very sort of curious to know what your answer will be, especially based on the conversation that we just had. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Cool, yeah. All right, guys, going to play some music. We'll be back in a little bit.
Enjoy. Damn, you still got that COVID?
Yeah, mad. Cool. Oh, all right. So we're back with the final segment, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who have been locked in, thank you for sticking around this long. My name is Sadiq Bello. This is Everyday People. You're locked in on Voices Radio. I didn't mention it earlier, but this podcast is also available on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and you can obviously listen back to it on my Mixcloud and on Voices Radio's Mixcloud and SoundCloud. So my guest is Elliott Nielson, who I've had a hell of a conversation with that I've really loved so far, just playing some music in between, but we're down to the last segment, and I specifically want to ask him a question that I ask all of my guests, as you know, for those who have listened in before. Elliott, you still there? You with us?
Oh yeah, I'm ready. I'm intrigued.
Excellent. All right. So my question to you is, if you could have. So first of all, there's like a two-part question. But if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, right? Whether they've been here or whether they're still here or whether they've gone, who would it be?
Okay.
And why?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough question. I always ask this similar question at dinner, but I make it like a 3-part thing, like the dream dinner party.
Right.
With 3 people. But just to have one is like, oof, that's tough, isn't it? There's so many people, and I'm trying to think who would really,
or who you'd feel like right now in this particular moment would would like help you out.
Who would help me out? Who would give me a drop of wisdom and optimism and hope right now? I feel like, I mean, I'm a big Jimi Hendrix fan, But
Oh, that's nice.
I also, speaking about Bob Marley earlier, just realised that he was only, 36 or 32 when he died.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's just getting to the point where he could have had a lot to share. But also, I read Nelson Mandela's autobiography once. And that was incredible. I know I'm giving too many.
But they're all really solid. They're all creditable. Like, you haven't said anyone like
hot take.
Wait, why that? Like, they're all good people that I'd want to meet. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So but I tell you what, someone who is still alive, really present, really powerful, gave me a lot of positivity when I saw her play live last year.
Yeah.
She's an absolute legend. She's got bounds of positivity. Her music is up there in my top 5. She's a desert island disc of mine. Yeah. And she's just an all-round queen, and I feel like she embodies all of the characteristics of what I want to do. She's made it to the place she is now. She's still alive and still does that thing that I feel like Bob Marley did and other artists did, by giving you new perspectives and hope. And I'm going to say Erykah Badu.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I just feel like she'd be really nice, really motherly, and the conversation wouldn't end with their ghost disappearing. She'd still be there.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could have a really good talk and plan about, the world and society and how she holds her own as a woman in the kind of hip hop space, but she's still like so badass. I saw her live at Love Supreme, maybe not last year, maybe in 2022, and it was definitely the best show. She had like 4 dancers come out, the band's vibing, setting the scene, warming everyone up, getting everyone loose. She comes out in this massive cloak, steps onto stage. She puts her tea on a podium to the right hand side, and there was a drum pad, like a MPC kind of thing, set up also on the middle of the stage. And she just went, pow, pow. Everything goes quiet. And it's just her stood there with this incredible, like, multicolored cloak on. And then just did this drumming thing, brought everyone in, and then just proceeded to make you feel amazing for the next hour.
No, do you want to know something, right? So of all the people that you've mentioned, I would go with Erykah Badu. I think Erykah Badu was the strongest in that list that I would, or the one that I would most likely want to sit with. But I brought her up, which makes me understand that we actually do have a lot more similarities than I thought before. But Erykah Badu is my favorite human being in the whole planet, right? In the whole planet. But I'll tell you exactly why. It's just because of, obviously she makes great music. She's not even like a person, she's like a spirit, right?
For real.
Like, dope. But I'll tell you why Erykah Badu is my favorite person. She's also the same reason why Andre 3000 is my favorite person. But specifically out of the two, I like Erykah Badu in the same sense that, a lot of people like Obama, but they like Michelle even more. Or like some people love Jay-Z, but they love her more, right? They always say like, a woman makes there's always a great woman behind them, and etc. etc. So here's my reason as to why I think Erykah Badu is my favorite human, right? Imagine I told you that I had a friend named Mary, right? And Mary grew up in Harlesden or in Tottenham on a council estate. She was black, and she grew up predominantly poor, and she had 3 baby daddies, and all her 3 baby daddies aspired to be rappers, right? They all had mixtapes out on the block and everyone on the road knew them and so forth. So that's what they did. And all 3 of them, none of them married Mary, and Mary basically had 5 kids, 2 of them from one of the like baby daddy rappers, and the other two from like 3 other baby daddy rappers. Now, if I said to you, this is my friend Mary, a lot of people, whether they're from school, at work, politicians, doctors, or whatever, all of society would give up on Mary, thinking Mary isn't going to amount to much, right? Mary is just like, yeah, she'll probably end up working in, I don't know, like some corner shop or Sainsbury's or wherever it is, 'cause, like, not much, working part-time and ending on benefits and so forth. People will look at her almost as a second-class citizen. They won't treat her as a human being, right? Some people are like that based on the fact that she's not married. She's got kids by 3 different men who don't seem to all have a full-time job or any sort of career aspects or academic degrees or anything like that. But that is Erykah Badu.
I didn't know that.
And that's why she's my favorite person, because Erykah Badu, right, was a waitress in some little like bar or club, and that's when she started singing. And her 3 baby daddies are Andre 3000, who is like one of the sickest MCs ever.
Needs no introduction.
Right? The other one is Common, and then the other one is Jay Electronica. All 3 of those are amazing MCs, top of their field, right? And what's it called? And she's had kids with all of them. And so the reason why Erykah Badu is my favorite person is because she is the epitome of challenging the status quo. That I see is like, and the thing is, she's not even like, do you understand what I mean? She's not even trying to be Erykah Badu, like as we know her. She is just being who she is, and she's managed to break down all of these barriers and all of these walls and completely challenge the status quo. For me, she's the epitome of, it would be like someone who came from nothing, like, and ended up being one of the most important people that inspired a whole generation. And the reason why it's more special that she made it and she did it and she is that person is because she doesn't come with all of the privileges that a lot of other people in that position of power come from. Do you understand what I mean? So that's why Erykah Badu is my favorite person. Because
hey, I thought you were saying this is my favorite person. My dinner time. Sadiq, you stolen my date with Erykah Badu. Actually, we're just sat here trying to have a nice dinner, and here you are.
Come to mine. I said, forget Elliott. Come over to mine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad we share that, man, because she's incredible. Thank you for that background, though. I had no idea that was where she come from. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then, sorry, we got sidetracked. But the second question I was going to ask you was whether or not you believe in God or a God or spiritual being or whatever is the universe, whatever is happening, nature, right?
The big question.
Yeah.
What is the meaning? Why are we here?
Behind why we're here.
Of course. Wow. Well, so I come to a place with it where
wait. Sorry. So that wasn't the actual question. First of all, which one of those do you believe in or adhere to? Do you think, like, do you believe in a God, for instance?
One being making us. No.
Okay.
I believe that there might be higher realms of human existence. Maybe we come from
something else.
Gods.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's one decider of everything. It's too much work for
one person, of course. Yeah.
Or one individual being. I think I like to see the sanctity in all as one beautiful creation, as one God we are. But yeah, I kind of, my take on spiritual outlook now is that you can't just read one book in the library, you know?
Makes sense. Okay.
There's all these beautiful ways of understanding the world, which, and the Bible's like this amazing Wikipedia written over thousands of years that people of stories trying to understand our existence here, as is the Quran, as is the Torah, as is Hinduism, which I really like. But I just, don't see it as just you can only read one book. You have to read all the books. You have to try all the philosophies. You've got to try all the different kinds of yoga and breathing practice.
Yeah.
And that you're still not going to understand it. You just got to know how to live a better life.
It's like trying to teach a pigeon how to play chess. They just can't comprehend it. They just simply can't.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to figure out who we are and where we come from. There's definitely an argument that, I like the idea of maybe that we come from beings that didn't start on this planet.
Yeah.
Potentially, I feel like there's a whole universe out there, but I'm starting to move more into like planes of existence, and thinking that you're sort of, oh God, it's hard to put into words. Like you can have higher states of being that aren't just the physical.
Yeah.
And that the things that we think we're looking for, we're not going to be able to see until we transcend physical form.
That's such a beautiful answer to, you know what, right? And this is why I was saying you're my favorite guest so far, because you're the only person that's ever put me in this position. Because you basically gave me an answer to a question that wasn't asked, but because the reason why I say this is because my question is now void. My question was going to be, whatever it was that you believed in, whether it was a god or a spiritual being or the universe or Mother Nature, my question was going to be, if you met that person or that thing, what would you ask them? But by definition, the answer that you've just given me, I don't think you would ask them anything. I feel as though you would just sit there and enjoy your time with them, because you almost sort of realize that there's nothing they could tell you that would give you all of the answers that you need. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean.
Question.
I never really adhered to any kind of way of belief. My parents were not that religious. My dad was raised a Catholic, and my mum didn't really go to church. They tried to make me go to Sunday school, and I was always a bit like, I'm a sportsman, innit? So like my Sunday, I wanted to be filled with kicking a ball around.
Yeah.
And I never even like, they used to take us to church in school, and I was just like, really? Like,
But
it's weird that I never believe one dogma. I never fed into one. So now I've come to this kind of existence. I love the idea of a god revealing themselves and being like, "Oh, here I am, Elliott. You are wrong." It's not just a mishmash of existence. I would absolutely love that and want to hang out with them for as long as possible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be scared, because I'd quite enjoy the fact that they've gone and created this wonderful, wonderful world that we've.
A part of me feels like it's like, what would you even, how, like, I feel, I'm not gonna lie to you, I feel like God or the universe or the planets, whatever, is different to each individual. I feel like God comes to you, or Mother Nature comes to you, however, in whatever form would suit you best. So I don't think they have, if there are greater beings that existed here before us, I don't think they have a form. I feel like in terms of intelligence or evolution, they have probably turned into a form that is no longer in the physical realm, and they are able to shapeshift into whatever our imagination can comprehend. That I feel like that's how they would come to us. And so that being said, if there was a God, I feel like he would actually, or she, or they would look exactly like us when they came to see us, because that would be the most nurturing person or thing that we would speak to. Like, if something looked like me, more likely listen to it or be intrigued to spend time with it. See what I'm saying?
I like that idea. I feel like they show themselves they can show themselves in different ways.
Yeah.
There's this great book that if you like these kind of questions, you should definitely check out. It's called Some.
Yeah.
And it's a very short book, and I read it whenever I go to the toilet because they're very, very short. The stories are only a page long, but it's 40 different imaginations of the afterlife.
Right. That's mad.
Absolutely fascinating. And
read
yeah,
that.
one of them is really cool, and it plays on the idea of reincarnation, that you can be reincarnated as whoever you want or whatever you want. And so this person, they get that option, and they reincarnate themselves as someone who grows up in royalty, and then they get born, their memory of that interaction with the god or whatever gets wiped, and they grow up as a royal person, and they say, oh, you can choose this, and oh, do you know what, I'd quite like to be a horse in the next life.
Right.
And so the guy gets turned into a horse, but because he then has a horsey brain, when he dies, he never can think of the opportunity of being put back into a man. So
because
they just get put into a horse again.
Who's it written by, this book?
I'm literally going to run to the toilet so I can shout out this book. I have completely forgotten. It's sat in the bathroom always, and I have a quiet moment. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, of course.
It is called Some 40 Tales from the Afterlives by David Eagleman.
Right. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to definitely look that up and read into it. It's
so much fun. It gives you so much to think of and work with, and just makes you question, what could be the afterlife? It kind of brings God into a very realistic level of how are they actually how would one entity, even if they were free of the physical form, manage all of this amazement. And that kind of helps me out, thinking that, if God couldn't look after the thing that they created, sometimes in my life I feel like this is the life I've created and I don't have a handle on it. Oh well, God doesn't either. So we share that with God. We're, there's in Paradise Lost, Paradise Found, I don't know if you've ever read it. Very beautiful book, and it kind of shows you, like these angels that he created can go against their will, and even the life you create, sometimes you don't have a hold of it, and that's something we share with God and puts us on an equal footing with God, which is quite nice.
That's really amazing. Yeah, and the thing is, you know what? We could actually talk forever about this.
Of course, it's a massive topic.
It's like crazy. It's insane. So I'll tell you the truth. We actually ran out of time, right? About 17 minutes ago.
We did indeed.
We ran out of time, but I just really enjoyed everything that was being said. And so I kept it running because there were a few gems in here. And we've had like a really great conversation, but I'd like to invite you as a guest probably sometime again in the future, or just in general.
Of course, I would love to.
I feel like we've only just talked. We've only just
skimmed the surface, peeled the layer back
of a lot more stuff that we could talk about and get into. And I'm so gutted that it's coming to an end, but it's only because we only have 2 hours, and so I have to split it evenly between an hour of music and an hour of talk.
Indeed, but, the people don't want to hear me that are on for 2 hours. They can come listen to my podcast, Rebel Radio, if they want to hear. They want to hear more of me talk. Yeah.
Of course, but yeah, I will. I don't want to speak too soon, but I will definitely have you on as a guest again sometime in the future, because I feel like there's a lot more that we can unravel, or who knows what the future may bring. We might end up doing something together.
Exactly, I would love to.
But that being said, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with?
No, I'll just say thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed hearing an everyday conversation between me and Sadiq and my life and our life. I always try and just exude as much positivity as possible, because you don't know how your energy can affect someone, even if you think you're just staying calm and peaceful, and you don't think you're actually exuding anything outward. A lot of people in this day and age, it's so chaotic, they can feel energized by who you are just by being yourself. And that's kind of something I've realized about who I am and the power I have in just being me. You don't know the other effects it can have on you, so just be you and see if it makes the world a better place for someone else. That's all I'd say.
Excellent, and that's a great message to end on. I have been Sadiq Bello, this has been Elliott Nielson, and this has been Everyday People. So see you guys later.
Thank you so much for having me on. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Voices Radio.
Voices Radio. Voices as a radio.
Voices
Voices Radio.
Radio.